Hi everybody, you're listening to the Khandaan Podcast by the You Podcast team, a bi-weekly podcast revisiting the movies of Aamir Khan, Salman Khan and Shah Rukh Khan.
Every show we pick a random year from 3 decades of collectively 300 films the Khans have done and let our listeners vote which movie we should talk about. So it's entirely up to you.
Pick a team, make a vote, take us down nostalgia lane, punish us, or make us reassess a movie we dismissed.
We love the Khans, most of us, sometimes. And we would love for you all to be part of our Khandaan, because when it comes to the Khans in Bollywood, nothing else really matters.
Like, honestly, I don't think I know your feelings about Andaz Apna Apna. I think I have this assumption that everybody...
Start recording.
Oh, I'm already recording. Even when I was telling you I'm not recording, I was recording.
Wow, dude. That's some NSA shit.
I just have this assumption that everybody loves Andaz Apna Apna, but is that the case? Is this the case for you, Amrita?
I think for me, it comes and goes. Like, I remember watching it as a kid and I just didn't understand any of the references and I was just like, this is just bullshit. And then I haven't seen it too often over the years. Like, I've maybe seen it like one or maybe two other times. No, not even two. I think just one other time that I can remember since it first came out. Like, for me, in my memory, I remember this movie as having come like at the cusp of the 90s. Like, I thought it was a much earlier film for some reason. And I think it's because it looks like a B movie, like at least in my memory. Like, in retrospect, and when I see it today, it's very different. But when it came out, I kind of thought it was a B movie. Nice. And that's how I remember it too, like in my memory. But the thing is, like, the movie's become so iconic in the years since then, and it's so quotable that it doesn't matter whether I've seen it or I haven't seen it, or whether I like it or I don't like it. Like, I know the jokes, I laugh at the jokes, and like everybody knows the jokes. So it's just become like part of pop culture, I feel.
I think it's more part of the internet culture, like since the advent of memes and Bollywood humor came into the fore, you know, and it's just taken over its own, a new life altogether, which is greater than the movie itself.
I mean, so this is one of the, I mean, I think that you can count cult...
Asim loves this movie so much he can't even talk about it.
No, I was just going to talk about the idea of cult movies, right? Because this is one of those terms that annoys me when it's used mistakenly. Like a movie that was already, like, for example, you can call Om Shanti Om a cult movie, right? Because it was already a massive hit. And people like it, and people still like it and go to a sing song of Om Shanti Om. That doesn't make it a cult movie. But Andaz Apna Apna is a proper cult movie. And I don't think in Hindi cinema there are too many proper cult movies. I mean, now with what you mentioned, Sujoy, about the internet culture, a few more have come up, like Gunda, I would say, you know, which is kind of the equivalent of The Room, a few others here and there. But they're they're cult movies because of how bad they are. Andaz Apna Apna is not that, even though it is, it's a good comedy, right? And I would even say it's a trailblazer in terms of comedy, because I don't remember any other Hindi comedy movie adding that many references. David Dhawan started to do that afterwards, I think. But
Farah Khan.
Yeah, Farah Khan. I mean, now it's like so much self-referential is happening. But this is, to my understanding, one of the first one that did it and did it so heavily.
Yeah, because Sujoy and I were talking about this when you weren't here, Asim. But we were talking about like how much it reminds us of Farah Khan movies now, because it's that same sort of self-referential humor, the industry jokes, the little the little callbacks to other pop culture themes and memes that are popular now. Like all those things are things that we now associate with Farah Khan, but you see all of that in this movie. And it's, in a way, it's like very much ahead of its time, right?
And it was a flop when it came out. Like nobody went to watch it. Apparently, it had. I read some where they advertised it for 3 days, and nobody knew when the screenings were on. And which is odd because both Aamir and Salman were really popular. This movie, when it was announced, was a big thing. And I remember, like, people had lost hope that this movie would even come out. I remember the Muhurat shot because I saw the Lehre video and I was so excited about it. And it just, I think they had a lot of trouble with the production of it, and apparently the producer ran out of money, and it took them 3 to 4 years to make the movie. And I think a lot of people just thought it would never kind of see the light of day. So which is odd. It's such an odd thing to think about when you say you make. I mean, you could not make this movie now, right? You cannot have 2 Khans in a movie anymore, which is kind of sad. But except if it's a guest appearance or something like that, I just do not see it happening anymore.
I think you could have it, but I don't think Aamir would like to be in a movie with either one of them. Like, I think maybe he might. I don't see Aamir wanting to be in a movie with either one of them for separate reasons, I think. Yeah.
It also, like, coming back to that self-referential humor and that meta humor that we have a lot now of, it almost feels like Andaz Apna Apna was the Naked Gun. Remember the Naked Gun? Which is kind of, it was a spoof. It referenced a lot of things, but I feel the movies now, like a Rohit Shetty movie or a Anis Bazmi movie or even a Sajid Khan movie are almost like those disaster movie kind of, the Friedberg and Seltzer movies, you know, these disaster movie, epic movie, where it's just references for reference sake, and that's the joke, and they add like a sound effect behind it, and that's the joke, you know, whereas this was very, very different. This was not that kind of, the references are quite quick and they go quite quickly and subtly even, like, especially that Sholay maine 10 baar dekhi hai, iske baap ne likhi hai, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah. You would not even pick up necessarily on it. They don't, like, emphasize it.
And then they don't ponder over it. They just move on to the next bit, you know? Yeah, and it's joke after joke after joke. It's so densely packed. Yeah.
This movie won out pretty much from all the other movies we put in the poll. I think the second closest was Hum Aapke Kaun, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this one kind of won, and I think it's really grown in popularity in the last few years. Should we first pull out the random year generator for next year?
Yeah, go ahead.
1999.
There's Sarfarosh.
There's Man. Man, Badshah.
BB number one. Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam.
Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam. Oh my god.
Oh my god, that's so topical.
Wow.
Hello, brother.
Hello, brother.
So that's a lot of choices. I thought we'd have like one.
Janam Samjha Karo.
Wow, Salman has like 5 movies out. And I thought it was a bad period for Salman. Well, personally, probably it was a bad period.
Salman's bad period had nothing to do with him not getting work. Like, his bad period was just that he was turning out the worst films ever. It wasn't that he wasn't getting any work.
Yeah.
I don't think any of Aamir is the only one, I think, who, like, actually took a legit break.
Yeah.
Like, but that was his choice. Like, I don't think anybody was like, no, we're not going to work with Aamir Khan. I think it was Aamir saying, no, I don't want to work.
And Man was the movie that broke him, right?
Man and Mela.
Yeah, Man and Mela, those two were the ones that really kind of, he wanted to
Okay, I'd rather watch any of these movies than Man. Like, no.
I don't remember much of Man, to be honest.
I remember there being Anil Kapoor in it, and some really bad songs. Yeah. And Rani Mukherjee's cameo.
Have you guys seen, that was actually, okay, no, never mind. Have you guys watched An Affair to Remember?
No.
Okay. So
I've heard of it. I know that it is a movie.
Yeah, that's a remake of An Affair to Remember. And it is the worst. So Aamir Khan is basically playing Cary Grant.
Wow. क्या ambition है.
Like, take that, like, yeah, that second of, like, you absorbing it, like, that is basically what the whole movie is like. It's just basically you sitting there, but this is not Cary Grant. Like, what is going on? No.
Wow, क्या tiger है. Because this is the Andaz Apna Apna podcast today, we are going to maybe quote Om Shanti Om on this episode.
We need to switch it around, otherwise we always have a Andaz Apna Apna quote now. So for episode 11, the choices are BV number 1, Hum Saath Saath Hain, Hello Brother, Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam, Janam Samjha Karo. So Salman Khan fans have a lot of choice here. Aamir coming back with 2 movies for once, Man and Sarfarosh, and Shah Rukh only has one, which is Badshah, which I have really terrible memories of.
Badshah actually has like a bit of a cult following.
Oh.
Like, it's one of those movies that like people talk about all the time. Like, I haven't rewatched it since it came out, and I remember it being pretty crap, but there's like a lot of people online who think like it's sort of like, it's like a cult comedy classic for like a lot of people. Like, they keep talking about it.
Is that the one with Twinkle Khanna?
Twinkle?
Yeah.
Twinkle.
Okay, wow.
So do you think like Ravan will in the future find a new life in the form of a cult favorite?
I think there's going to be a lot of little kids who remember watching Ravan and like really loving it. Because I know like little kids that watched it when it came out.
Yeah.
And they loved it.
Yeah. Same with my nephew. He at least asked me for 2 years when the sequel is coming out.
What's your earliest memory of like watching Andaz Apna Apna for the first time? I don't remember really watching the entire movie to begin with. When I probably watched it at a neighbor's VCR or VHS copy or something like that. But I like watched the movie like from beginning to finish only when I went for undergrad, and it was on somebody's hard drive. And I think that was the time when it actually took a life of its own. How about you, Asim?
Like I'd been waiting for it for a long time, and when it reached me as a cassette, like that I could actually watch it, it was like a while later, and a lot of my cousins had watched it, and they were telling me that this was such a funny movie and quoting lines already from it. And I'm not saying that I watched it years later, but like a couple of months later. So I already had like, wow, apparently this is supposed to be really good. So when I watched it, I was blown away from the first watch. The things that I laughed at then are still the things that I laugh at now. And this movie is like, for me, this is the funniest movie. Like, of all movies I've ever seen, this makes me laugh the most. Like, when I was 20, it made me laugh when it came out. And, I wasn't even 20. I was like, what? How old was I? 14, 15 when I came out? Because I got the wrong page in front of me. That's why I'm like confusing my math. And now I'm like getting close to 40. 20 years later, I'm still laughing at Prem Khurrana and Tilu, you know? So it's insane. It's insane why. I don't get it. And my question was going to be that I want to ask you guys, is this a meticulously crafted comedy masterpiece, or is it a fluke? And I don't know the answer to this.
No, I think this is the product of Rajkumar Santoshi and his band of writers smoking some really amazing shit and then just going berserk on paper. And then like Salman was there and he's like, yep, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna call like Crime Master Gogo ji aapka ghagra. That, like, I was watching that last night and I just lost my shit.
I lost my shit. I lost my shit at Gagra.
Gogo ji aapka ghagra, and he's like, haan main uthata hu, and then he just carries on.
He carries on, yeah. But the funny part about this idea about I don't think they riffed at all in this movie because nobody got along at this point. Salman and Aamir did not get along. Raveena and Karisma did not get along. Apparently, they were having lots of trouble with the funding of the movie. It took 3 to 4 years to even complete it. Everybody was just sick and tired of it. So I don't think in that environment, it's like, it's not kind of a Seth Rogen kind of freestyle comedy kind of, let's take another set. So it had to be in the writing that this was done. But as a director, I love Rajkumar Santoshi. I feel he's very, very underrated, but I think he's almost, when we think of Subhash Ghai when he used to be good, I think Rajkumar Santoshi is like that, but he's always been good, and his movies haven't aged that terribly, and they're much better than Subhash Ghai movies. And I love his comedies. I think people like Andaz Apna Apna, what's closest for me is Ajab Prem Ki Ghazab Kahani. Again, a Rajkumar Santoshi movie. And it does have a bit more of those sound effects, and the comedy is a bit louder, but it is very much in the same kind of wheelhouse. So there is a definite idea of this movie's genius is in the writing of it, but still there's some element that is a lightning in a bottle kind of thing, because nobody has been able to do this again, right? This is
and it's also very coherent. Like the events of set A would go into set B and then carry forward the story, and it eventually has an arc of all the characters and their motivations and how it reaches to the climax. They wanted to get married and they eventually get married. So
I think in terms of being a well-written comedy in Hindi cinema, I think Jaane Bhi Do Yaro is basically, the touchstone. I think that's that's the high point of Indian comedy. But this particular kind of comedy, it's basically a skit, it's a series of skits, but it follows like Sujoy said, a coherent storyline. And that is the kind of filmmaking that you see with both Farah Khan and Sajid Khan. The difference between Sajid and Farah being, Farah is a better director and she has a better grasp of, the old school masala kind of ways of doing it. But I think in terms of it being as successful as this, I think this particular style of comedy, this is probably the best version that's ever come out. And I think that's because everybody involved in this particular kind of film, well, not the girls, Raveena and Karishma, it could have been anybody, right? It has nothing, they're just there. But if you look at Aamir, Salman, and then
Juhi and Govinda. But Aamir and Salman are two of the perfect people to have in this movie, because they're so steeped in the traditions of the Hindi film industry, and they're so much a part of it, and they've just grown up in the business and they're just obsessed by it. Even today, 30 years later, they haven't lost any of the the know-how and the passion for it. I think even Salman, who's very chalta hai kind of attitude, when he starts talking about the film business, you can see that he's completely a part of it. So I think in terms of casting, they got really lucky, because all those on the fly kind of quips, the conviction with which they can make those self-referential jokes, I don't think any two other people at that same level could have made it. In the beginning, when Juhi is saying, I thought I dreamt of, I thought Shah Rukh Khan was coming, and then Aamir goes oh, this Shah Rukh Khan, he keeps coming everywhere. That's the kind of quip that it wouldn't work with anybody other than Aamir or Salman.
Yeah.
So I think this was just everything just came together in this movie.
And although this was the year of team-ups in movies, the top grossing movie of 94 was Hum Aapke Hain Kaun. Second was Mohra, I think, which was also kind of a team up. It was, Sunil Shetty. You had Main Khiladi Tu Anadi, team up Suhag, Dilwale, Atish, so Ye Dil Lagi. All these movies came out. So there was a lot of,
Akshay Kumar movies.
Yeah. A lot of actors kind of coming together and, making a project. And Andaz Apna Apna was very different. And, I think this was kind of the first, this was the first time they came together, and they were really, really popular because their debuts were, a couple of years ago. And this was kind of the first hype that both Salman and Aamir were kind of had, I think. And it's funny because Salman, I always talk about the phases of Salman, and this has like 3 phases in it in one movie. It has the Sajan mullet, then it has the unruly long hair, which I think Salman probably misses the most. The Prem Khurana hair, the very long, luscious hair that he has. And then he has the Suraj Bharjatiya made me cut my hair for Hum Aapke Kaun haircut. So he has like all 3 of them. And it's funny. It's just funny that the hair just keeps changing within scenes. Like, it's insane to me. Why can this work, and why is it so funny?
Oh, that's it. Okay, because this is the Khandaan podcast, and this is the very first episode when there is a movie with both Aamir and Salman in it, let's pit against, the acting skills of these two in the context of this movie. Like, do you think Aamir is a better comedian than Salman, or vice versa?
No.
Go on.
I think Aamir got out-acted in like the first 5 minutes of the movie when Govinda showed him how to do comedy. There's a lot of things that Aamir does really well. Comedy is not really one of them, especially at this stage of his career. And you can kind of see him improve through the duration of the movie, especially as he meets Salman and like works more and more with Salman. Mm-hmm. But he constantly needs like somebody to be his foil. Like in his scenes with Juhi, like Juhi is like Juhi's out acting him off the screen, and that's true of Salman as well. Like Salman's comic timing in this movie is amazing. He's just perfect.
It's a tougher role too, though, right? Salman is playing kind of the good-hearted, dumb guy, the naive one, and Aamir is playing like
the asshole.
Yeah, like a hustler, right? Like he's a hustler who thinks he's smarter than everybody else, and he's also the straight man most of the time. So it is kind of hard, but I mean, there's some moments where he's with Devan Verma, his dad, and Churiyo ka that whole Churiyo ki dukaan, like he's so good in that. Like there's no, like I cannot say that but I think I don't know, like nazakat se I'm dying. This podcast is gonna kill me. This is too funny. Oh man! This movie, people, is more than 20 years old, and I'm laughing like I still haven't.
मैं बेटी को चूड़ी पहनाऊंगा आप माँ को
and that little pause like मैं बेटी को नहीं आप माँ को चूड़ियाँ पहनाइए
and he's like okay, yeah, that works. Like
Salman is amazing in this movie, and I don't know if it's impressed by Aamir, like I have, because this is not Aamir no, it's not like Aamir perfectionist Aamir that we know now, right? The whole idea of perfectionist Aamir doesn't exist at this time. So
no, that came post Lagan, I think.
Yeah, and they got into a lot of fights. Apparently, Aamir and Salman didn't get along because Salman used to roll into the studio at like 2 in the afternoon, and Aamir was already there rehearsing from 8, and he's just like chilling for 5 hours for Salman to show up, and Salman would just like knock it out of the park straight away, because that's how Salman does, you know. So, do you think, is it just Salman, is his inherent way of doing comedy, or was he trying to impress Aamir, you think?
I think he's just good at this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is just like, I really think this is like probably what Salman is like if he's like sitting at home and like cracking jokes, you know? Like the little one-liners and stuff are so classic Salman.
I don't know. I think the delivery again is classic Salman, the way he delivers these lines, you know? Like, chote mamu.
He gets so carried away in the gulab jamun.
The gulab jamun. He got totally distracted by the scam. But there's
I think that was probably, so I know like Aamir has talked quite a bit about like how much he hated working with Salman because Salman was late, Salman was erratic, Salman was Salman. But I think he was also like really offended because like Asim said, like he'd show up on sets and like practice since 8 in the morning and then turn in like the second best performance when like Salman would like roll out of bed at like whatever, like 3 in the afternoon or whatever, and like show up to set and like just throw this off and just be brilliant, you know?
But
that can't be good.
But nothing has changed, right? Because we had Sultan and Dangal the same year. And Aamir has been like going fat and taking steroids and working out and feminism and blah, blah, blah. And Salman just puts on a fake mustache and does the same thing, you know? And I think he probably made more money in India at least than, you know, if you don't add the Chinese box office to Dangal. I think Sultan was a bigger hit than Dangal, if I'm not mistaken. Was it not? Or maybe Dangal was more. I don't know. It's still, like, the amount of effort is still, like, you know, the same.
So, where do you stand, Asim?
I mean, first of all, I gotta say, I find it very hard to talk about comedies. Like, it's my least favorite genre to review because, you know, this movie is hilarious to me. And how it's very hard to judge it by any other standard than is it funny, right? Like, and
it is, yeah.
And a Rohit Shetty movie, the Golmaal movies have never been funny to me, but they're so funny to so many other people. So I just find comedy very hard to discuss generally. But I mean, I've seen this movie countless times. Yeah, exactly. And I was kind of like dreading rewatching it and analyzing it for the first time. You know, this is the first time I'm actually doing a review about it. So I was kind of dreading.
Again, it's like other than some aspects of it, like Aamir being an asshole and, you know, harassing women. Other than that, I just can't find myself analyzing this movie because I'm just carried away in the, you know, hilarity of the events that happen and the characters. Like from Mehmood to Jagdeep to Deven Verma to the hotel manager to, you know, Bhalla and Rabbit.
Rabbit. Happy birthday, Rabbit.
So, yeah, it is very difficult for me to analyze Andaz Apna Apna as a movie.
Yeah. And because we were also live tweeting it, or we tried live tweeting it yesterday, and thank you for the people that did join us. And it's hard because, you know, you're watching the movie, you're also laughing, and then you're making notes for the podcast, but then you're also trying to find something to tweet about it. And it's a weird kind of constraint to watch this movie in. But it was interesting because I wanted to rewatch it in a different way. And the thing is, there were points I just, again, lost it. I laughing. I dropped my phone. I couldn't take any notes anymore with my pen. There is just so many jokes in this movie, even the ones that you remember and you quote. There's so many things that you still pick up on that I never picked up on. Like, just to give you a quick example, right? You have the football Sharbat match, right?
Yeah.
And Aamir is telling the story about, how he won this football match, and he's like shifting the glasses, like their players in the field. And at the end, there's goal, right? And Prem, Salman Khan, gets so caught up in the story that Aamir is telling, he actually starts cheering the goal. He goes like, yeah, goal! And then he kind of like composes himself. No, wait, I hate this guy, But it's such a small thing, but it's hilarious to me. Like just picking up on that, and this movie is a gold mine in that kind of thing.
Like if you say about comedy, like the beginning 10 minutes or so where he has that intro dream sequence of getting married to Juhi, that in itself is an amazing like self-contained comedy genius of a plot,
Yeah.
It's like a really great comedy short, and just because of Juhi and how great Govinda is in the mere 10 seconds that he appears.
And I even started more appreciating the things that I appreciated less, like the supporting characters. Like I'm not I do not like Tiku Talsania. He just, every movie he's in, he annoys the crap out of me. But it's these little things like when they're in the police station, right? I don't, like when Aamir opens up Salman's batwa that he's stolen, right? The doorkeep picture of Salman that comes up with that big smile, like any other Bollywood movie would just have a glamour shot. Like the one Paresh Rawal has of himself when he goes tang tang.
I think the supporting cast is basically what keeps this entire enterprise afloat, because as good as Salman is and as good as everything is, like if they didn't have like that particular cast of people who knew exactly what they were doing, I don't think, like each of those people is just perfect in their roles. Like Paresh Rawal is excellent. And then Shehbaz Khan, I think that's his name, right? Ajit's son.
Yeah.
I think he is just so spot on with his dad's impersonation. And
the great thing is that he says smart boy, and that's actually saying, yeah, I know what you're doing, you shit.
Yeah.
But he says just smart boy,
Like all of them are so on it. And like at the end, like when, like Tiku Talsania comes in, he's like, he's arresting everybody in the line. And then he comes across Shakti Kapoor and he just goes like in his usual Tiku Talsania way, like, I must go. And it is the best. I mean, like,
okay, since we are mentioning all these supporting characters, I have to mention that, like, I've never been a big fan of Jagdeep, right?
Yeah.
But he has this amazing killer line in this movie when he confronts Johnny, played by Mahmood, and he says, he's like, Johnny says, "Mere film mein main aapko role bhi dunga, hero banaunga, uncle." And he says, "Uncle, अरे बड़ा पुराना पापी है रे तू." Oh God.
The line that kills me this time when I was rewatching is when he says, "Wahan gandasa chalega gatagat gatagat." The delivery that he has, and I think this is kind of like the theater kind of comedy. Like these are probably like theater actors, and there's this a way that like when he goes to like "Mera baap picture mein khada aata hai," and the crowd scenes, it just was such a perfect scam. You almost feel this is Aamir Khan's character who like became Mahmood 40 years later or something like that.
So the big difference, I think, between this and say Sajid Khan is that this movie knows, like, and it comes down to like the performance, but also the direction. In that the movie knows when to move on. Like it says the joke and then it moves on. It doesn't stop and then admire itself for making the joke.
How smart we have written
exactly.
this.
Yeah, like with Sajid, like he still has that TV mentality of doing like skits.
Where's the laughter track?
Yeah. So he's waiting for that laughter track. So he's just like, we'll pause here and then the audience will laugh. And the problem is like with that pause, the audience doesn't want to laugh. Whereas with Andaz Apna Apna, it just keeps on moving and it's like skit after skit after skit. So you're like, wait, I need to like catch up with these jokes. And that's why you can like go back and watch it again and again and again because it's rapid, you know?
Yeah, like that scene when Aamir has to occupy that room in the hotel or in the lodge.
The lodge scene, yeah.
And he's like, the hotel guy is introducing, पास में कब्रिस्तान है, कंप्लेन नहीं आना चाहिए, रात को पानी आता है and all that, और बत्ती नहीं है, तो कपड़े कैसे बदलूंगा? It's like किसी को देखने दिखाने का प्रोग्राम. It's like constant,
my favorite of that particular scene is that, he says that Vidwa Ma and Andi Behan line, and then he doesn't get a response. So he like repeats that line and then he looks up into the distance and then you can see it and then the guy is like, oh no, मेरे से कितना बड़ा पाप होने वाला था. Like those are the little things, like.
But that scene is so interesting because it's so like what you were saying about Salman and Aamir. This movie is so ingrained in Hindi cinema because that shot of Andi Behan and Vidwa Ma, we know exactly what that is, And the other moment was when they have the whole kidnap plot, uncle kidnap ho gaya na? Like there's this moment where Aamir asks Salman, "Tu bata." Like, and he does the whole thing in mime, and it's such a weird beat in the movie where everything goes silent. Salman is just miming how they were kidnapping uncle and it didn't work out, and and Aamir just go, "Haan, aise hi hua." Like it was because any other director would make that a comedy scene. He would add some weird slapstick or some stupidity in it.
Yeah.
They just kind of take a pause there and just say, "Haan, aise hi hua tha," because we know.
Yeah. So like when you see the Andhi Ma and the Vidwa Behan, the Andhi Behan and the Vidwa Ma, like she's got the sewing machine, like the Vidwa Ma's got the sewing machine, and then the Andhi Behan is like beating up these vessels.
Yeah, bartan manj rahi hai.
And you're like, you've seen that such a million times. Like it's been in Cars, it's been in like so many films. And you're like, of course, like that's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first movie that vocalizes that trope of Bollywood, right?
Yeah. And then like there's that scene where like they think they're rescuing Ram Gopal and they're trying to get him on their moped.
That still gets me.
Yeah, like speaking of Bollywood tropes, it's got that mandir from every Bollywood movie ever. When they're rescuing Ram Gopal Bajaj, and of course the house where Raveena stays. That's also in every Bollywood movie ever.
It is, yeah. So it's just a collection of things that are familiar.
What is that line where he says, "ये चिल्लर लेके आया, ये फिनौती के पैसे
या मैयत का चंदा." Oh, मेरी मेहनत की कमाई से ऑमलेट बनाऊंगा.
Nonsense.
Oh.
God.
Yeah.
Are there aspects of the movie that we don't like as much or haven't held up as much? Like I'll go first because I have a clear thing here. I never liked the music of this movie.
The music is like, there is none.
Yeah, I mean, like, Ye Raat aur Ye Duri just makes me very happy because of the picturization of the song. Probably that's why I can listen to it sometimes, but overall the music quality is really bad. I think it kind of tried to emulate the era of Naushad's movies and, the whole Tange Wala song. Yeah. But it just... it was like an afterthought, and we didn't ever hear of, the composer ever again after this movie.
It does feel very much kind of the Raj Kapoor kind of era, and it almost reminds me of, remember when Veer Zara came out? I don't know who the music director was. He probably some very well-known.
Mohan.
Yeah, and apparently they'd found his compositions of 20 years ago, and then his son remastered them or something, and they had a very kind of classical feel to it, and it worked in Veer Zara. It's a great soundtrack. But I almost feel this is the same thing that Andaz Apna Apna was doing, going for a very kind of old song kind of way. But then they also have S.P. Bala singing in it, which is awesome. I love S.P. Bala, and I love that they brought him back. And the moments that he is in there in Bom Bom or in, Ye Raate Aur Iduri, it just kind of, revitalizes it. And this is kind of that Salman, S.P. Bala era where they were like, kicking out of the park. But then if you have Elo, 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 it just seems like an old song, like a Dilip Kumar song or something like that when he was like in Aan or something like that. So I never really liked the music, and apparently there was an extra song that they had and they never were able to shoot it because Karishma Kapoor didn't have any dates anymore. Probably because Raja Babu came out and she got a makeover and she, was now a popular heroine, which wasn't the case when the movie started, I guess. But yeah, are there any other aspects that you like less, maybe?
This is basically a movie that didn't need music. I feel like there was absolutely no reason for there to be any kind of songs except, they needed the girls to do something.
I didn't really like, Raveena and Karishma in this movie.
I like Karishma.
They had nothing. Wait, who did the dubbing for Karishma, do you think? Because that's not her usual voice, right?
I don't know.
I think it is.
I think it is her voice, but it's just she was instructed to speak in the most annoying way,
I think it's also Karishma also has quite an evolution in her career. The way she started and where she ended and what she is now. There's been a very kind of, she was very raw and she had a lot of, time to kind of fine tune the kind of performer she became. And I think here, she's very raw, and I think it in the dubbing it does feel that. And I honestly feel probably the women didn't even have time to do dubbing correctly. I pointed out in my live tweet yesterday. Raveena Tandon has a foreign accent for exactly one scene when she arrives in the airport, and then they just completely forget that she is supposed to have a foreign accent. Actually, the foreign accent jumps to Devan Verma later on when they're doing the Churiyon Ki Dukaan scene. But then it just disappears. So it's weird, and it just feels a bit like an afterthought, the way the women's role was. But I do feel there were moments, like when Tilu is getting hit on the head, the joy that Karishma has on her face seeing Aamir Khan get beat up is hilarious to me. And just the line, "Badtameez ladki sofe pe chadti hai,"
Oh man, the way Aamir treats Karishma for being like Raveena's servant is just what the fuck.
But that's the kind of guy Aamir is, right? In this movie, he's kind of like he just. I love the balance that they strike because he's always hustling, and sometimes he gets away with it, which I just love. Because he's not a talented hustler. Most of his hustles do not work out the way he wants. Especially in the Grindmaster Go-Go scene, for example. He gets so amped up and excited that Salman has the pistol. And it just, the whole plan crumbles in front of me. But I do like these little moments where, he did manage to sell the Churiyon Ki Dukaan idea to his neighbor. These kind of little things. He did manage to switch the cigarette, right, from the beedi. I like that kind of thing that he has. But yeah, he is arrogant, and he's also in that Amar Singh role, right? He's kind of hustle his way that he's like royalty or something like that.
Yeah. But do you think he sold his house for 25,000 and so that sort of covered all his expenses after that? The amount of suits that he's wearing after that movie, after that particular scene is just.
I don't know property prices in India at that time. I don't know what the inflation rate was, or I don't know. The clothes are pretty terrible. All of the I wonder if the movie had such a terrible budget, or it was they tried to make them wear terrible things to make it funnier. I don't know.
Was it a conscious choice?
Yeah, like there's this thing that Karisma is wearing. Amrita, you know, right? What I'm referring to? It's like black, and then she has like jean short in front of it, like a white jean short, and then there's like, it's like dungarees but half cut out, and then like dungarees mutated with like tight leggings or something like that, like a catsuit. I don't know what it is, right? But you know what I'm trying to explain, right?
Yes, it didn't scar me quite as much as it seems to have scarred you. Yes. Yeah, I mean, this is not a movie with high production values. Like, let's be very clear. Like, you can see, like I said, like, you know, like for a long time, I honestly thought this was a B movie, and then it wasn't until like actually this watch that I actually sat through it, and I was like, oh no, wait, like they probably poured all their money into the star cast because. You know, there's a very A-list star cast, to be honest.
But if you look at the movies that came out in 1994, like Dilwale and Mohra and Raja Babu and Krantiveer and, you know, Main Khiladi Tu Onari even, there's no really high production value movies that we can talk about in the 90s. Other than maybe like 1942, A Love Story, which is probably because Vinod Chopra gives everything to his movies. And Hum Aapke Hain Kaun.
Yeah, so that's the one that I wanted to talk about because, as somebody pointed out, you know, like, on Twitter, I think it was Ruchi who was like talking about it, and, Hum Aapke Hain Kaun basically changed the game for Indian cinema. Like, that was the start of Bollywood proper. Like, everyone talks about Bollywood right now, but, you know, like, Bollywood as a concept, like, really took off from Hum Aapke Hain Kaun. When you look at the production values, when you look at the glossiness of that film, like even all these years later, if you go back and take a look at it, it's very, there's a feel to it, there's a vibe to it, there's a
Stepping
how do I
up.
explain it? Yeah, like the game changed with Hum Aapke Hain Kaun. And I think that's also why, like I instinctively date Andaz Apna Apna as an older movie, because when you compare these two movies, even though it came out in the same year, they're like night and day.
Yeah. But I mean, you need. I think they started shooting this in 91. You know, it took them 3 years to make it. So if they wrote it in 90. You know, we're talking about pretty much the debuts. Like Salman is still in the Baghi period at that time. You know, so I think a lot of change, and I think yes, Hum Aapke Hain Kaun, and then especially when Karan Johar came on, you know, set designs. I think he said, wasn't it set designer Sharmistra Roy, or if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, for Dilwale Dulhania.
Yeah, she really changed how. You know, production value is set. And I also think most of their budget went into buying Vasco da Gama's gun, because, you know, you have to go to a museum, you know, because that was the real gun, obviously, right?
I'm quite surprised how Bhalla's and Robert's plans are so bad. Like the bomb that they plant won't do much damage because it just scrapes off one layer of clothing if it, you know. And the gun, Paresh Rawal is like looking right down the barrel and he just gets a black face.
Yeah, but I think that's probably, again, in the conception of the movie, because what I read is they wanted to make a Tom and Jerry movie, like in live action. And those are very Tom and Jerry kind of jokes, right? Especially the Vasco da Gama ki gun.
And the time bomb.
Yeah, the time bomb. I just remember.
Amrita's gone off.
I still don't know why it's Vasco da Gama ki gun.
Because they can then say Kiske Mama ki gun. That's
Kiske Mama ki gun.
That's the only reason.
Like, it's so random, but it's so perfect. Like that's basically
Like, I had completely forgotten that line was there until it reappeared.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's hilarious. But yeah, it is. Those moments are very much kind of the Tom and Jerry kind of the skits in there.
And they have a nod to Star Wars as well, like when Prem fights Crime Master Gogo without touching each other in the climax. When he's just... they're just boogieing around.
What is that? Like, I find it hilarious. I do not understand what it's referencing, actually.
Yeah, there is no logic to it.
And why is it so perfectly synchronized? Like, why is Salman and Shakti so in sync that they're doing it so perfectly? Like, that moment where the first time Salman kind of turns around and then he puts his butt out.
And he feels it.
Yeah, he feels it, right?
5 meters between them, but he feels it.
Like, what is this? Like, what is this supposed to be? Like, I do get, like, I love that they have a little Vijay Path moment, remember? Like, when they're like, and that is so specific, like, to make fun of Vijay Path, which came out the same year. So, like, they have these glasses and they're playing, like, blind kung fu men for a minute.
Doing Tai Chi.
Yeah. It's hilarious.
Like, that movie could never be made. Like, let's be realistic. Like, if you made Andaz Apna Apna today with all its industry jokes, there would be, like, such a cloud of outrage over everything. Like, everyone would be like, how dare they do that? And, like, aise kaise, and, like, all that kind of stuff. Like, you couldn't make this movie in 2018. It's very sad.
Because they've been trying, right? They've been trying for ages. There was this idea about making it an animated version. Then they had this idea
of making a sequel.
Yeah.
I don't think sequel would work. Like, because it requires this has a certain innocence to it that I don't think Salman and Aamir possess anymore.
No,
like, it would have to be recast.
Yeah, they wanted, like, I remember the last conversation was when Imran Khan and Ranbir Kapoor were super buddies. There was some talk about them doing Andaz Apna Apna 2 together. Which I don't know, that actually could work. I don't know, weirdly enough. At that time, right? Like, they were...
I don't know, because I think, like, everyone, like, all the actors that I see today, they're, like, so polished and they're so, like, they're such products by the time they make their debut. They're not like Aamir and Salman or even Shah Rukh when they first came out. Like, they were so raw, they were so innocent.
I think, like, Imran could work because he's as bad as Aamir is in this movie.
No, I think that time could have worked. Like, when they were friends, right? That little moment, that was like just a couple of years ago, and they weren't as polished as, like, Varun, Ranveer. This generation cannot do it. Like, I don't see them doing it. But just that, like, just before, like, a couple of years ago, when Ranveer just came out, and he was
and
kind of...
they were hosting film fair together.
Yeah, there was that. They had that little bromance that was very shortly lived. And I think that could have been some moment where they could have done it, but it's best that they don't remake it or add a sequel. I just don't see it happening anymore. Like,
no.
And there's this old idea about, comedy is serious business, and I think you need kind of a serious... And we've spoken about Sajid Khan a few times, right? Like, I've not enjoyed watching a lot of his movies. A few I thought were okay. But I love watching, because he's a film geek. He's so knowledgeable about movies. And I love watching his making ofs. Like, he has these very elaborate behind the scene footage where he, you see him shoot the whole movie. And they are having so much fun. Sajid Khan thinks he is making the funniest movie ever made. And I don't think Andaz Apna Apna anybody thought that this was the funniest movie they made, or So I think that's where the difference kind of lies. Like, and I hear a lot of times that the best stand-up comedians and comedians are quite miserable people when they're at home. Where Sajid Khan with Akshay, and you have what's the guy's name? I'm blanking on his name now.
Ritesh.
Yeah, Ritesh. Yeah. These guys just have way too much fun together, and they just and I also think Sajid Khan doesn't respect the audience, and that translates too much in a cinema, where Farah Khan does respect her audience, and I think that's the big difference between these two, besides also the talent. But Sajid Khan really has that thing where I know this, I'm the smartest one, and my audience are idiots. I'm just gonna, make money out of this. Whereas I don't think Farah ever projects that in her movies to me.
I think with Sajid, there's also a thing of like him, like he just casts a lot of people for like no good reason that I can tell. Like every single one of his leading ladies, I'm always like, why wouldn't you just choose somebody that can act at least a little bit, Whereas with Farah, like even if she is choosing somebody because they're glamorous, and let's not pretend like Farah's above that, she is capable of like making them do something on screen. Like they're never just props.
Farah she's very interesting in the way, hopefully we can do a podcast about it and then I can get into it a bit deeper, but it's very interesting how she portrays her heroines, but also how much, how dismissive she is of her heroines a lot of times, especially when and it's a very interesting kind of dichotomy, and I feel, but they're gonna bring in my audience, and I still need my Sheila Ki Jawani, so it's kind of an interesting thing. But yeah, if we ever do a Farah Khan review, we can get into that a bit deeper.
I'm sure we will get to review or talk about Om Shanti Om.
Yeah. So what is your ultimate favorite sequence in this movie still? Like, is there one that you say, like this time I was blown away by Prem Khurana. Like that whole sequence, ye bimari chhune se phailti hai. It's just non-stop. It just blew me away this time. It's so silly too, like, Babu bahut patke padne wale tumhe. Salman is just like full on. It's his moment to take revenge on Aamir. That just kind of killed me this time. But are there any moments that, not quotable things, but like whole sequences? Because like you said, Amrita, this whole movie is just skits, right? Is there a specific skit that is still kind of your favorite?
I think the climax is still my favorite. Like every single thing just comes back to the climax. Like there's so many callbacks in the climax, like, to like little jokes that we've had throughout the film.
Yeah.
And then just for Crime Master Gogo alone, like that entire sequence of like Shakti Kapoor just being like, what the fuck is going on?
He fires the only bullet, and Shakti Kapoor does that dance.
Is banduk mein, and that slap Salman gives him, we were almost winning for a moment.
So that's still my favorite, like, of all the silly skits.
I love it. There's a moment where he goes, hands up, and the hands were already up, and he goes like, haath pehle to upar the. He put them down. Oh God, this movie.
Nobody is going to understand anything that we said in this podcast.
Yeah. There's also no subtitles. Amazon Prime doesn't have any subtitles. YouTube doesn't have any subtitles. This is like, already comedy is very hard for non-desi, people from not the culture. I find comedy translates very difficultly, especially this kind of comedy, because it's not solely slapstick. Slapstick does translate, but this is so self-referential. Although my wife was watching this for the first time and there were no subtitles, so she couldn't follow, but she did laugh at Le Coupe Français du Hair. So even that translated to her, so imagine.
I think you have to be like a very particular kind of person to enjoy this movie. I wouldn't say that this is like this is a comedy for everybody. Like, not even for like desis. Like, I wouldn't say this is for everybody, because you have to have an affection for the Hindi film industry, and you have to have an understanding of like what exactly they're making fun of, and you have to like Aamir and Salman. Like, if you don't like Aamir and Salman, this movie does not work at all.
That's the interesting point now. I think now, back in those days, we were okay with not liking or somebody theek hai, that kind of thing. But now these fan groups have been so polarized. it's. I think I was speaking with somebody who had never seen Andaz Apna Apna, but they saw it later on, so I couldn't get them on as a guest. But this is a very tough movie to introduce to somebody who's never seen it, because even I was thinking so yesterday I was putting it on, I was telling my wife that this is my favorite movie of all time, and she just laughs and said, "You say that about every movie." But and I was like, "Oh, there's no subtitles, so you can't watch it." But it's one of those things where I'm so excited and I'm already quoting all these lines. How is it even enjoyable for somebody who's coming in for the first time, It's like making somebody watch Star Wars for the first time, how are they ever going to love it that much as you saw it 20 years ago and you've been watching this movie every year since then? But yeah, Sujoy, your favorite skit, I didn't ask you actually.
Wow, I don't know. I love them all. They are all equally good. But I mean, the introduction Juhi dream sequence is amazing. I mean, if I can just watch that and end the movie there, and I'll be happy for the whole day.
Yeah.
The bread ka bacha or omelette ka raja, that is amazing. And last night when I was watching, when Salman gets the news that Karishma is Raveena and Raveena is Karishma, and he goes to the restaurant and points at laugh at it.
His laugh is so high pitched, it's so hilarious.
And then Aamir goes into the kitchen while he's, bartan manj raha hai, and then the background music is kya se kya ho gaya. Oh.
They use music for a movie with terrible music. They use music really well in this film. When Aamir is being put into jail and Salman is being released and Aamir is crying and the background music is Papa Kehte Hain. It's just perfect. So they clearly understand the music, how music should be used. So I don't really understand why they have terrible music in this film.
And they even have that, Dekha hai pehli baar, Sajan ki aankhon mein, which Aamir then sings on the sofa, which is also funny.
It's also really funny that Aamir is the alpha male in this movie.
Yeah.
Sujoy talking about it. And I think, so Salman is taller than Aamir, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody's taller than Aamir, but there's definitely framing shots in this movie where you can see Salman is being made to crouch so that he looks like he's shorter than Aamir, and they're the same height. There's that, that scene where, Salman's recovering from his injuries and everything, and
Kamar tooti hai, koni nahi.
And that entire sequence is the two of them together, but Aamir standing on his tippy toes and Salman being forced to crouch down and slanting basically at a 45-degree angle to show that he's smaller.
He's not that smaller, Amrita. This is not Peter Jackson Hobbit kind of photography they're doing. How short is Aamir in your mind, Amrita?
Okay, let's settle down.
But also this is also the age of the unfortunate pants situation where all of them are wearing their pants somewhere under their collar. So,
yeah, it's very the pant chest leg ratio of Aamir is really off the chart on this one.
So to me that just makes I think somebody probably told Aamir that he look taller if he buttons if he buttons his pants somewhere around his lungs, but he basically looks even funnier.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway,
the only time the guys actually look decently dressed is in the final fight sequence, I feel. They're dressed in a reasonable, decent way. But otherwise, it's terrible. Those, New Yorkie topi and New Yorkie jacket, when were we wearing this stuff,
But even when they're wearing suits to meet Bajaj, and like Aamir's suit is okay, but Salman's suit looks like really 2 sizes over his actual size, It's just massive.
Yeah, but I think Salman just had this moment where he just wanted to be dressed that way. He just had this idea about power suits, double-breasted power suits, and he used to wear them in a lot of movies. Love and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, he just getting back to Prem Khurana scene, he comes in with this long lush hair, a double-breasted suit, and a whole bag of carpenter gear. Police doctor. Police doctor. What is this absurdity?
And then when he sees Raveena or Karishma, whoever, and he realizes it's not Raveena, he then does this wrong number kyun lag raha hai?
I was going to ask, do you know any people that don't like this movie, that don't find it funny?
I know quite a few, actually.
Really? बुलाओ उनको कौन है
दिखाओ गोगो जी का घाघरा दिखाओ.
Yeah, there's quite a few actually. After the whole the poll ended on Twitter, there were quite a few people who were just Indians who didn't care for it. And then of course, like you said, if you don't if you're not native level speaker, then of course you don't comedy is really hard.
That I totally get. That I totally understand. That's but yeah, they see people that don't get. I would like to hear it. If people don't like this movie, could you just send us a tweet or something? Because I'd love to hear about why you don't like this movie. That would be really interesting, actually. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to evaluate this movie. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend it to somebody who hasn't seen this movie. It's very hard to, it's probably what I have when I go back to Jani Bidyo Yaro now. I just don't get it. It's too old. I don't find it funny, or I think a lot of people, because a lot of people kind of got into the Khans, there's also just the age difference, right? There's, we're older, people that are, let's say, 20 years old. This came out before them, so there's no way maybe they won't go back and watch this movie. I don't know if they would get all the references. So I don't know if I would even recommend this movie. I think if you watched it and you've loved it, watch it again. But it's very hard to recommend to somebody who hasn't seen this movie. Don't you find that?
Yeah, I guess depends on people's tolerance levels of slapstick humor, or if they are at all knowledgeable about, Bollywood references.
Because, in terms of comedy, it's still very well written, as a comedy, right? And I don't think the comedy itself has aged. And because the references are, they're not that timely, except that Vijay Pat spoof. Everybody, Papa Kehte Hain joke, everybody will get that. Or the Vidwama Andi Ben kind of joke, everybody would get that. So they're not that necessarily specific. And it's very well written. But I do think that because the fandom are now so separate from each other, I don't know, maybe Shah Rukh Khan fans won't appreciate that he didn't get a cameo, or they kind of made fun of him with that Juhi Chawla joke. I don't know. I don't know if I would recommend it to people that haven't seen this. It's a weird one.
But does it rank high on the nostalgia scale?
It does, right? It's such a specific time in their career in cinema then, but on the other hand, it's such an outlier because there's nothing like it. There's never been another movie like this.
So Andaz Apna Apna as itself is a milestone. It's like a point in time when Andaz Apna Apna existed, and all nostalgia is related exclusively to it rather than any of the surrounding movies that came out even in 1994.
Well, Aapke Hain Kaun was the same year and all, so that does, And yeah, But that's the case with, there's just it's very hard because there's no other movie like this. There's no other movies that became so popular after flopping and nobody talked about when it came out. Yeah. And I don't even know when it happened. There was no if you go back to The Room or Disaster Artist, there's a graph of how these movies kind of became popular. I don't know when that happened. There was no graph. Andaz Apna Apna was pretty much always popular and always flopped in the theater, which is just a weird feeling to have known. Yeah.
But I guess, the popularity, as you say, that it took a life of its own after the mainstream release, that is accumulated only when social circles are built and the internet helped it. So post the internet, way after, 10 years after Andaz Apna Apna came out, that's when it began.
You think? I thought it was always popular. I don't know. Maybe I'm mistaken in that. I think we found each other. I think on internet we found each other. Hey, wait, we all found this movie funny. Yeah. But it was always funny in a way. I don't know.
It was always funny, but the sort of following and the coming together of fans, that's always, that only happened after the internet.
Yeah, we're done. Cool. Okay, so just to kind of repeat, for episode 11, we've pulled out 1999, which has BV number 1, Janam Samjha Karo, Hum Saath Saath Hain, Hello Brother, and Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam with Salman. We have Man and Sarfarosh with Aamir, and we have Badshah with Shah Rukh Khan. So we'll put the poll up, vote as you usually do. Yeah.
So which of those would you like to watch, Asim?
I know which one I don't want to watch, and it's Janam Samjha Karo. But otherwise, I'm pretty much okay with all. I know I hate BV number 1. I do not like BV number 1. Sorry, no. Is it no entry or is it BV number 1 that I hate? I think I hate them both. The BV number 1 has Shusmita in it, right? Yeah. I don't like BV number 1. So it would be interesting to rewatch it and see if I still hate it as much as I did then. And one, I remember watching it then and hating it. But I don't know. I wouldn't mind revisiting it to see if it's that terrible. What was that movie that broke Aamir? So it might be an interesting rewatch. So what about you, Sujoy? Which one do you want to watch and not watch?
I haven't watched Sarfarosh in a long time, so I'd probably like to watch that. Aamir Khan was really good in that.
Yeah, you have that Sonali Bendre thing too, right? That
yes.
Amrita was asking me about on the last episode. So yeah, it was Sujoy that asked the Sonali Bendre thing.
But I don't want to watch Man or Badshah. Oh yeah, Hello Brother is another one. Oh.
What? You do not want to watch Hello Brother?
I knew it. I knew Asim was a fan of Hello Brother.
How are you guys not fans of Hello Brother?
Oh, Asim, how well we know you.
If you were here, I would do a pungi with both of you guys.
That's exactly why I hate this movie. The amount of school torture that I've faced post this movie. But anyway, those are my movies that I want to and don't want to watch.
Amrita, so we vote for Hello Brother for you, right?
I think I would like to watch Sarfarosh because I haven't seen it in a long time.
Yeah.
But I think it would be interesting to discuss Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam because there's so much to talk about it, from a gossip level, from a movie level. There's so many things to talk about it.
The music.
So good.
Music.
Oh my god.
The music is amazing.
One of the best movies Sanjay Leela Bhansali has made.
We can talk about it.
Yeah.
But I do not want to watch pretty much all the other Salman Khan movies. Or maybe Badshah would be interesting to watch just because I want to see like what it is that has made it such a cult favorite with so many other people. And I have zero motivation to watch it otherwise. But apart from that, I don't think any of the other movies are particularly interesting.
Yeah, well, the choice is clearly not up to us. It's to the audience. So we'll put the poll out and let people decide as they usually do. There were some people that on Twitter that were saying that, guys, you need to change your concept. I was like, yeah, I know. That's something Amrita thinks about every episode.
Every episode.
And we did get a nice suggestion from our top friend Beth to do kind of more topic related Khandaan episodes, which is interesting, which we might also kind of figure out how to do. So if you have any topics discussing the Khans, drop us a line and at youpodcasting@gmail.com. Amrita, where can people find more of you online?
You can find me on Twitter at AmritaIQ.
Great. Sujoy?
I'm on Twitter at 9E3K.
And I'm Asim Bernie. You've been listening to the Khandaan Podcast. Thank you for listening. Subscribe to us. We're pretty much now available, like the whole migration thing has happened. So you can listen to us on pretty much any streaming platform. So be it Spotify, be it iHeartRadio, Deezer. So go and do that. Thanks for listening. And I was just going through this. We have some really weird places where people are listening to us, which is really, really cool. We have people in Kazakhstan that are listening to us. So drop us a line, listener from Kazakhstan. I would love to hear how you found this podcast and what you enjoy about it. So yeah, drop us a line at youpodcasting@gmail.com. And thanks everybody for listening.
Khandaan Podcast और एक्टिंग